body, it's the facts we bring, yeah. Whoa, yeah. Whoa, Uncles ting, tis an uncle's ting. Pull up on the body, it's the facts we bring, yeah. Whoa, yeah. Whoa.
Welcome to today's episode of the Unkles Podcast. We're thrilled to be joined here by a true rugby league legend, David Mead. Over the course of his illustrious career, David played 171 NRL games for the Gold Coast Titans and the Brisbane Broncos, scoring an impressive 75 tries since making your debut back in 2009. Then you took on your talents overseas, playing 58 games for the Catalan Dragons in the UK Super League, where you add another 29 tries to your career tally. And you're not just known for your on-field brilliance, but for your success off the field as well. So away from rugby league, he's a thriving business owner, a sought-after brand ambassador, and you're very much involved in the community back in PNG, but here in Australia as well through your podcast. And above all, you're a proud husband and father, balancing professional life with family commitments and leading a fit and healthy life as well. Really honored to have you here today, David, and we're really excited to have you.
Thanks, Charles. Yeah.
Trying to put that together.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for the nice intro. I was going to say you should be my manager.
Oh, no.
It's a very nice promotion, but no, thank you. I'm excited to be here. I see what you guys are doing. Some of your stuff pops up online on social media, and I really enjoy the clips, particularly when I see three young Papua New Guineans trying to give their best and put some good positive vibes out there. I think we probably don't have enough of it, so I like to see that, especially from young men. I think we can do a lot more in this space to promote good, and I think you're all doing a very good job. So yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Dave. It's really awesome to have you here. We've been followers on your podcast for a long time, so it's part of how we sort of, we got inspiration from that to start this podcast as well. So finally we got you here. So it's been a long time coming. So
yeah, well, you guys are doing a bit better than I am. I think you're on 82 podcasts. You were saying. Yeah, I'm still stuck on 30 something, so I've got to get my act together.
30, but you probably get a lot more views than us, so no, it's awesome. So firstly, we just start off with, obviously, as we do here at the Uncles, with the word of the week. So tell us a word, or describe to us a word that best describes your week so far, or the journey so far.
Funny you say that, because just before I left home today, I like looking at quotes. I can't memorize all of them, but since growing up as a kid, I've always liked post-it notes on my wall in the bedroom, especially when I would move to Lismore at the age of 12. So I used to just write quotes, notes as reminders for myself to just stay on track, keep my act together. But I was reading a book this afternoon called The Magic of Thinking Big, and it just said one word that if you put into your daily life, it's enthusiasm. And so that's probably the word that is the word I'll say tonight. It's one of the topics in the book. It just describes saying that if you get bored at home sitting around doing nothing, and you're mindlessly scrolling through social media, if you look enthusiastically at a subject that you've never really even come across before, and you show some interest and you keep digging deeper and deeper, you show a new version of yourself, a different part of you comes about. So I think enthusiasm is a word that I'll probably try and live for 2025. And it's funny enough, a friend of mine sent me a message, and she said, we're going to move forward with Gusto this year. I looked up Gusto, what Gusto means online. It had the word enthusiasm and energy in there as part of it. So I was like, I think we'll roll with that.
Awesome. And we'll dive straight into it. So for yourself, where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Port Moresby, 1988. A single mum. She got married to my dad, who was Australian. But I never knew him. They had their challenges, and I haven't got the full story, but he left immediately after I was born, a couple of months old, I believe it was. So I was in the village with a single mum, grandparents, a couple of cousins, uncles, aunties in a household, Tubusereia village. So born in Port Moresby, spent most of my days in Tubusereia up until just before I turned 12. I moved to Australia, but typical village life, village kid. My skin was probably a little bit lighter than the rest of the kids in the village because Dad being Australian, but I felt like I was just a village kid. I climbed mango trees, coconut trees, played volleyball over the fence, barbed wire fence, on the school. We weren't supposed to, but we'd do it anyway.
Of course.
I touched footy before and after school with my friends, and we'd give ourselves rugby league names. Steve Renouf was my inspiration.
Yeah, wow.
And so, just I lived in Tubusereia village for 12 years, and then moved to Lismore, New South Wales.
Yeah, wow. Lismore, so that was a big change, definitely. From
you guys been to Lismore? Have you checked out Lismore at all?
I've driven through Lismore.
Yeah, it's famously more so known for the floods that have occurred over the past few decades. But big country town, big cricketing town as well.
Yeah.
So I got into cricket when I first moved over there, and played a bit of rugby union there. So
Awesome.
It was a big change.
Definitely. And obviously living in Tubusereia, moving down here, what were some of those childhood memories that you can remember? I know you touched on a few. Were there any challenges during that time?
From going from Tubusereia to Lismore?
To Lismore, yes.
So I think the main challenge was not being confident speaking English.
Oh, okay,
Whereas, in school in PNG, you learn English. They teach you English, but you have to back yourself because all your cousins are making fun of you for trying to speak it.
Yeah,
Look at this guy trying to speak English. Thinks he's fancy. But you learn it in school, but you don't really speak it at home. And so that would have been the biggest challenge. And then obviously leaving my mum. At the time I had 2 brothers and a sister. The 4th one came while I was living over here, but I missed them. That was a big shift. I moved in with my mum's older sister, who adopted me into their family. The reason was my dad was Australian, so a bit easier for me to get a visa and make the move. So, and plus she wanted to get me out of the village.
Yeah.
I think all my cousins had both their parents there as well, and I was the eldest one in my mum with a single mum, and she thought if I give him an opportunity. Much like a lot of other Papua New Guinean families do, they give their siblings an opportunity to go live with them and further their education. So I was given that opportunity to come to Lismore. Speaking English was the big challenge. Missing family. I think those were the 2 main things.
Yeah. Wow. And I know this is out of the topic I guess we're on, but what's your favorite PNG dish?
That's this easy one. Mud crabs with a bit of chili, coconut, and then some greens.
Oh, delicious!
And some taro and coconut there too. So
of course,
it's that combination is just I could eat it all day.
Yeah, wow. Oh, that's awesome. Do you go to the markets much when you're back in?
I've been a few times, but it's it takes a while to walk around and stuff because I do enjoy it.
Yeah,
it's good, but also. It takes too long for us to get out of the car to go do our rounds. Everyone wants to say hello and shake hands and stuff like that. So, which is nice. I enjoy it, but it's always fun.
Yeah.
Just going and mixing with the local people. Cocky Market's normally the one we go to. That's where a lot of the seafood is. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And high school. So you get to Lismore, and tell us about your high school journey.
Yeah, so high school, I went to Kadina High School for 4 years, grade 7 to 10, and then Trinity Catholic College, which is sadly for grade 11 and 12. So sadly that was in the floods a few years ago, and the school can't operate anymore because and a lot of damages. But my high schooling years, probably similar to a lot of other kids in high school. Yeah. I had a good group of mates. They were very, we were probably the nerdier. Type of I had a nerdier type of friends. We enjoyed cricket, playing chess. They all played soccer, but I went the rugby union route.
Oh yeah.
And when I catch up with them to this day, my wife still gives me a bit of a bit of flack. So, just saying, man, you and your mates, you were definitely the nerdy group in school. Just some of the banter that happened. She's like, yeah, you guys are lame, but. But yeah, no, I had a really good, solid group of mates in high school, which I was pretty lucky because that's in high school there's a lot of trouble can follow you, but I believe having those group of guys helped me to set a good foundation, but also to enjoy the high schooling years. And then my 2 years at Trinity Catholic College, I went there and not sure exactly the reason I changed. I think because my younger sister was going there, I went with her as well. But that was a good 2 years. That's where I got my opportunity with the Gold Coast Titans. But also a lot of good people there. I used to go to class, but then at lunchtime I'd go use the gym. And the gym was kind of closed off and not really open for anyone else to use. It was like a PE subject gym, but it was closed off at the time. And so I'd ask the head of PE, I'd say, John, can I go use the gym? And he'd be like, I'm not allowed to, but I'll give you the keys, and you didn't get them from me. So he knew I had an opportunity to pursue a professional rugby league career. He knew I wanted to. And the Gold Coast Titans came in 2007, so they were doing a lot of their scouting back then. And so he kind of helped me to progress my career in high school as well. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed school.
Yeah,
probably could have done a lot better. Now when I look back on it, I could have done a lot better with my schoolwork and stuff like that because MSN was out at the time. You guys remember MSN?
Yeah, of course.
Having a computer in your room, it's not a good combination. Staying up till 11, 12 a.m. just talking to people and but I really enjoyed it. Good times at high school for sure.
Yeah, awesome. And I know you touched on a little bit of footy there. Was high school where you discovered your love for rugby or rugby league? So you were playing union at that time?
Yeah, I did. Yes. Yeah, so I think I discovered it at a much earlier age in the village.
Oh yeah.
Give the kids calling themselves, Steve Renoff at the time, Petro, Darren Lockyer, all these names. So I think rugby league was, for me, I wanted to play rugby league at the highest level, and you don't really tell too many people you want to do it because what you find out is when you tell people, they tend to crush your dreams. And so I told a few people, but it was always just, I just kept it in my mind, and I believe I discovered it at a pretty young age. That's what I wanted to do. Yeah. I'd watch TV with all my family in the village, and you guys know what it's like, the small TV with everyone sitting around cheering.
Yeah.
And I just watch it go, man, this is pretty cool. But sometimes as a kid, you're watching a game and you're tensing your body as if you're the one.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, man, why can't they just run past the players and score the try? I was one of those kids. And so, but I'd go to bed, no joke, I would go to sleep and I would visualize, I'd dream of playing in stadiums and people cheering and, scoring tries, that kind of stuff. And so I think it was a very young age. Maybe kids just do that naturally anyway for different sports. But for me, rugby league was the number one sport. The reason why I played union in high school was because my Stephen, who you worked with,
yes.
So he was playing rugby union down there for Southern Cross Lismore. Wow. And then Chris, the younger brother down from Stephen, he followed in his footsteps playing union. So then I decided to join the same club and play rugby there as well. So I played for 5 years, and the Gold Coast Titans came. They were doing their recruiting at that time because they were going to enter the competition in 2007. So I think 3 to 4 years before that, they were scouting for a lot of players, and so I transitioned to league just to, my friends from Trinity Catholic College were playing league, and they convinced me to switch over. So 1 year I played union and league at the same time. One was on a Saturday, one was on a Sunday, and then league kind of took over because Titans they just said you got to choose one because you can't be playing rugby union if you're contracted to league.
Wow. And what position were you playing in union at that time?
At the time, I think I started as a flanker, so in the scrum, on the side. Jeez. We didn't know what we were doing, so I think the coach just looked at the kids and said, "All right, you look like you can play here." So I'd just pack on the side of the second rows and just So I think I had maybe 2 years of flanker, and then slowly in the centres, and then 5'8" and a bit of halfback. So Yeah, I mean, like as kids, though, you just have a turn of all different positions.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually didn't really play wing until I started playing for the Titans in under 20s. And so that's kind of when my wing career took off.
And when you started league, what like position were you?
So when I started league in 2007 or 2006 with Morris Brothers, so that was, I played in the centres.
Yep.
Yep, and I think that was all year in the centres, and then we did well that year.
Yeah.
And then I played with the Tweedhead Seagulls, played in the centres there again, and then Gold Coast Titans were in the comp. So then they were the feeder clubs for the Gold Coast Titans. So when I got to the Titans, man, there was just a lot of bigger guys, and guys scouted from New Zealand, Sydney, all coming in, much bigger. I think I had a 79 kilo frame on me. These guys were 90, 100 kilos, under 20s, which probably doesn't surprise you now because a lot of the kids coming through just big monsters,
Yeah.
And so because I was a lot skinnier and smaller, I had a bit more speed than the bigger guys. So then the coach decided to pull me out on the wing.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of when I started playing on the wing. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And my earliest memory of you was pulling on the jumper in 2008 when you were only 19, and then obviously the most recent one was you scoring your last try as a captain of the Kumuls. Talk us through that journey as a Kumul. What was that like?
Yeah, when you look back on it now, it's you kind of feel like you've blinked and it's all happened. And so 2008, which is the year I played under 20s, I didn't really have a particularly good year playing 20s, but then I remember Adrian Lamb at the time, they were selecting players from international to go over and play the resident side over there. And so, I think we were a week in camp. So I remember Lammy calling and saying, "Mate, I like what you're doing with Gold Coast Titans there. I want you to come in. There's an opportunity for you to get a wing spot for the Kumuls. And how do you feel about that?" I said, "Oh, mate, I'll take any opportunity I can." And so, selected in the squad to, I think it was 40-man squad for the Kumuls. I remember we landed in camp. Before that, everyone from Brisbane and Sydney gathers at the airport the airport. So as a kid, you're pretty nervous with the players that you're going to meet, what your teammates are going to like. You're pretty young, so you're the young one amongst all these senior players. But they were all very nice. Paul Ayton was part of the squad. Keith Peters, Johnny Wilshere, these Rod Griffin. So all these guys were part of that core group that I started with. And so really solid group of guys. And we moved. I think Trevor Exton. I think Trevor was here as well. So Trevor was part of that group. And so we went over to Port Moresby, 1 week trial, and then we got to play against the residents there who were the players from the local competition. Yeah, guys like Charlie Wabble, Jesse Joe. Wow. And so all these guys we had to play against. So we. I don't know if I was in the mix to play in the be a part of that 24-man squad that got picked, but fortunately I played well and was lucky enough to get picked into the squad. I had a good World Cup campaign with the team, really enjoyed it, great experience. And then from there on it was kind of just year to year going into camp, playing, really enjoying each other's company for a good few weeks. Yep. Going back pre-season NRL and then just doing that over a few years. Played a couple of World Cups, a couple of tests as well over the period. And then my last game most recently, which was quite emotional because you don't really think of too much of the games in between. It's kind of where it started. And 2008 was when the old PRL, which was, that was a crazy time as well. That was an experience. That was an eye-opener. I remember the guy saying, my first game as a trial against the residents, I remember Keith Peters saying, "Man, just, wait till we get to the stadium or, 200 metres from the stadium, just wait and see." So as we get there, it's just packed with people and they're just shaking the bus, hey, banging on the window. And I'm just sitting there going, whoa, man, this is different, hey? And you could just feel the enthusiasm, passion from all the fans. We get there and they don't really know us. There's not too many NRL players, so the fans don't really know our names or anything. But after that, everyone's, after that game, they just embraced us and just said, and from then on, he was kind of just like, wow, it's, what a special group to be a part of, and to be also representing your country, because it's things that you think of as a kid wanting to do. And I think for me, I was very lucky that it happened at quite a young age. I was 19 at the time and I made the squad. And going back to a few years ago, which is like 3 years ago now, I retired. That feels quick as well. Enjoyed the camp with the boys. Emotional, and it just happened really quick. So it was 14, 15 years of rugby league. But with the Kumuls as well, there's a lot of time spaced out where we don't play games. So although it was 14, 15 years, it was a lot of time in between where we didn't play games. So, but regardless, it was still enjoyable.
And I mean, you were one of the youngest just to be in that squad when you guys did the 2008 campaign. What was it like, sort of giving that opportunity to someone for the World Cup in 2022? How did that decision come to you when you bowed out of the competition representing PNG?
Yeah, I think I knew I had a pretty good feeling that I was going to retire from NRL that year anyway. And just thinking back to when I got my opportunity as a young guy in Port Moresby, and I knew there was a few young potentials going to play for Kumuls. I knew Jimmy's name was getting thrown out. Jimmy Nutlik, he's a winger, speedster. Rob was there. I think he would have got a position anyway, because he proved that he could play the game at that level at that time. But the guys like that, I was, and maybe a few others we hadn't heard of, I didn't want them to miss out, because I was going to go and play a few extra games. For me, it was, just a few more games. For them, it could be a career-defining moment, because I know a lot of guys, there's probably about 150 guys waiting for an opportunity to get into the NRL, and the Kumuls is a jersey that gives you a pretty good chance to make a mark and to get an opportunity. So for me, it was pretty easy to make that decision, but I think for them it would have been quite a unique opportunity. So it's pretty easy.
Okay, that's awesome. And who's your all-time Kumul favorite before you started Kumuls, or who was one of the Kumuls that you looked up to before?
Oh, Marcus Bai, hands down. Yeah. Marcus was, he just ran the ball hard, no fear. I used to see him on the ads all the time in PNG, Biscuit and was it like Tulip or Fab or something like that?
Fabulous.
Fabulous, that's right, Fabulous.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I was like, man, this is pretty cool seeing that, eh? And then, but I just see the way he played, he was just tough. He wasn't scared to run the ball hard, and I actually saw him on the Gold Coast after the New Zealand game. I bumped into him, and he just had man, when Marcus looks at you in the eyes, it's like you're in that world, It's a different kind of feeling. He's literally there, just like, mate, you represent your country, run the ball hard, play with pride, all these things. So he had a good chat to me for a couple of minutes, and that just stuck with me. And this is before I even played NRL. So I think when you look up to someone and you respect someone like that, the words that they say to you, they stick with you forever. And so I took that opportunity to, apply myself at the Gold Coast Titans during pre-season to make sure that I'd get that opportunity. And, he said, who gives a F if you're not that big? When you catch that ball, you run as hard as you can and run over people. So, so he was easily my number one favourite player from PNG growing up.
Wow, shivers. Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps. That's awesome. And life outside of footy, obviously it's been 3 years now since then. What has been the hardest challenge you've faced after rugby league?
Hardest challenge after rugby league? I'd say it's pretty hard, but in comparison to everyone else, there's kids, other parts of the world starving, and so I try and get a bit of perspective. But in saying that, everyone's got their own problems, and when you're stuck in your own head with it, it feels like the world's going to end. But I think moving away from the professional rugby league scene, that sense of belonging,
Yes.
it's a real thing, because you definitely do. As humans, we're used to connecting and talking to people. The banter, that's all I knew from essentially as a young kid. Because in high school, you've got your friends who you banter with, and then straight out of that, I went to a professional rugby league scene where you're part of a group of 30, 40 guys who are just they're giving their absolute best. Essentially, the top 1% of your field trying to just belt the crap out of each other every single session. And there's something about that that's pretty special. It brings out the best in you. And so to get away from that and to not find another group, which is probably and something I look back on and go, for anyone retiring, you got to find a group that's similar to that. And so I really missed that. And I think that was a bit of a struggle for me, to be honest, because I just like being around a group of guys to train with and to connect with. Yeah. So I really missed that. So I had to just see a therapist. I think it took me like 2 or 3 sessions for something to click. And I talked to him, I don't know, 3 45-minute sessions of just talking and just saying, I'm in a bit of a, I wouldn't say dark place, but I just feel a bit stuck with my life. And he said, mate, to be honest, you're literally gone from a group of 1% top alpha athletes that want to get the best out of each other to, and no offense, being at home with your wife and kids. It's a 2 very different scenarios. Yeah. And so that just opened my eyes, and he said, go and find another group that's similar to that. You probably never find it, but just, go and try that. And so, I'm getting into a bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is, that's just a big green tick that fills that void. So I'd say it was the biggest struggle, the sense of belonging, and probably finding another purpose as well, which I'm finding as well, the community stuff that I'm doing with PNG. So yeah, 2 big green ticks there.
Wow. And you just touched on a little bit about family. Being a new father myself, I know how difficult it can be balancing work and personal life. How did you find managing that parent-work balance back in the day while you were playing professional football, and has that balance changed after?
Yeah, well, I guess, rugby league, it's pretty much a full-time job. Yeah. You leave home at 6:37, and sometimes you don't get home till 4, 5 o'clock. So just like a typical work day, you do that 5 days a week, and then you get a half day. So Tennille, my wife, she did most of the she carried most of the load there with Paxton early on, and then with Coven, second younger one. But you get a routine happening. You plan around it. If you've got a half day during the week, you kind of take the boys so that she can go and catch up with some friends and reset. And so we shared that that parenting. We've got a really good. We're on par with how we think, how we should parent. So it's about planning ahead with your scheduling, what aligns with your rugby league schedule, and what she can fit in as well, so she can keep her sanity. Because when you have 2 boys in the house and you're stuck with them all day, it's a hard gig. But I guess since retiring, do a lot of my work from home now.
Yeah. And
so school drop-offs, get home, work, school pick-up, and then sporting activities from 3 till 5, 6 o'clock. Yeah. Homework, bedtime, sleep, and then repeat. And so, yeah, it's kind of one of those things you just work out. I think for maybe any parents who are struggling, I think planning ahead's always key. And if any changes come up with work or family matters coming up, just literally get a 1-month schedule up and write down the activities. I believe that's really helped us. That's really been good for us. And yeah, it is challenging, but I wouldn't change it for anything else.
Yeah, it's all part of the journey, I guess.
It is, yeah. They're very testing, the kids, but yeah, they help you grow.
Yeah, exactly. Some great tips there. I'll probably follow some of those planning tips myself. So that's awesome. And how do you cope with stress? How has this changed from when you were in NRL or the Super League? And how has that changed till now?
I think stress, I never really thought about it too much until I retired. Because as NRL players or even as athletes, any sport, your stress is normally dealt with in the gym or on the rugby league field. And so because I think as young men especially, we've got a lot of energy. We're aggressive creatures, so we need to drive that aggression somewhere, whether it's martial arts, boxing, jiu-jitsu or rugby league, cricket, whatever the sport is, you need to go and put that energy somewhere. And so a lot of that stress was dealt with that way without me kind of being conscious of it. I was only conscious of it when I retired and I stopped training, because you'd be sitting there just feeling stressed for no reason.
Yeah.
So, all these thoughts come up in your mind about, what could or couldn't happen. You start thinking about it, you get anxious, and then it just continues for really no reason whatsoever. And so, but the real stresses in rugby league are the injuries. You can train as much as you want, but when you're with the trainer on a bike and the rest of the teams on the field, that's a different kind of stress. It's an emotional kind of, you feel a bit left out. So it has its downfalls, but I think if you can always see the plan that's put before you and just take it one step at a time, I think good things will happen. But number one is it's always, move your body around. Yeah. Stress is, I think there's studies, we see everything on TikTok, Instagram now. People talk about studies on stress. Exercise is the number one, number one potion for, reducing stress. And so, I really enjoy the gym and a bit of sauna as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that sounds great. And just touching on NRL again, was there any player in the NRL senior to yourself that helped you out with that first couple of steps in the NRL?
Initially, so I had guys like Scott Prince, Preston Campbell, Matt Rogers, Luke Bailey. So we were surrounded by not just NRL players, but good quality NRL players. So we were very spoiled in that regard. And they just had these high training standards that we hadn't seen before. I was quite young, so seeing how hard they trained, when you come through the ranks, you kind of expect the smaller guys to be fitter than the bigger guys. But sometimes the front rowers are fitter than most of your outside backs. And so Luke Bailey was one of those guys.
Jeez.
Nate Miles. They're just, you're doing 1.5K or 1.2K tests, and they're just leading the pack and holding that pace. So when you kind of see that standard, it inspires you. And they don't really have to say too much to get you to take action, but they were always they kind of experienced that old school rugby league. They were halfway to back end of their careers, so when they were coming through, it was just all old school. The older guys never really spoke to the young guys, but these guys were really good for us. They helped us to feel comfortable in first grade, but also, if we drop the ball or anything, they'd make sure they let us know.
Wow. Like a spray or what do they?
Oh, spray, man, anything. Stop effing dropping the ball. And you're obviously trying not to, but because of that, you're staying back and catching the ball another 50, 100 times so you can get better. And so that's the type of standards they drove. And it worked. It was really good for us. Yeah.
In that time, I think it was 2011. I know you scored this try where I know it's always talked about. We always see reels and we see memories of that pop up. But it's a try where I think they kicked it and it looked like it was going to bounce out.
I think Princey kicked the ball and bounced,
and then you did like a pickup behind you or something. And it just looks so natural. Talk us through that. What was that all about?
It didn't feel natural. To be honest, it kind of just happened. And I remember Princey kicking the ball, but if you look at the replay now, I haven't spoke about it too much. I actually missed the jump on it. I was 5 meters back, and you know, if I was up a bit later and I read the kick properly, I would have just caught it for an easy try. Because I was 5 meters back, I missed the ball and it just went in front of me, and I put my hand out and I just remember it sticking. I tried to watch it, but then you lose sight of it when it hits the ground. And then it stuck. I put the ball down and I looked back and I was like, oh, no way that happened. No way. I saw the touchy hadn't put the flag up and I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And then you see the replay, 30 seconds, 1 minute goes past, you go back to lineups. You don't really think too much about it. But it was that full time when some of the guys were coming and going, bro, what about your try? And I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, fuck, mate. And so I remember John Cartwright, he wasn't part of the coaching that night. He was at Coogee Hotel. We'd had a bad year that year. We lost a lot of games. And so winning at Shark Park against Sharks was a tough team. So I remember we got back to the hotel that night and he just had all these champagnes lined up for us. And because it had been a tough year and he was just trying to get the guys' morale up after the game. And so we ended up winning the game. And then I remember Cardi coming up to me and giving me the champagne and goes, mate, that try is going to be on YouTube for years to come. Here you go. And I didn't really think about it too much. And then, kind of Fox Sports replays it over and over again. You're like, oh, okay. Didn't really think too much about it, but I think the camera angle is what makes it look 10 times better. 10 times better than what it was. But it was, I'll claim it. That's for sure.
Yeah, we should get some footage. Make sure you put some footage of that in this. Yeah, great memories. Touching on NRL, obviously, you've spoken a little bit about that. Was there any particular song or music that you listened to at that time or even now? What sort of music are you into?
I liked all the old school stuff. Eminem, 50 Cent, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg. That's the pump up stuff. But during the week, I listen to a lot of PNG music as well. And so I grew up in the village, so I try and create happy memories while training because it just makes the day a bit easier, a bit smoother. And so a bit of Noah Lassie.
Legends.
And Moses Tau, who sadly passed away. He was an icon of the
PNG music industry.
PNG music. So I'd drop a few of those pre-game as well. And so just sometimes you just feel like you need to be happy running onto the field. So a lot of that music, but it was always a mix. Sometimes if I felt a bit tired or you try and prepare as well as you can, but some days when you're kind of like, I need a bit of a boost, then it's the Eminem's, the 50 Cent.
50 Cent.
Yeah. You feel like you're a gangster rapper. Ready to get the gun out of the pocket.
Oh gosh.
So I don't know. Something about that just makes you go, I'm ready to play.
Especially 50 Cent just gives you that vibe.
And then you go out there and then you get smashed. Yeah. So it varied. I didn't really have one set playlist. But then in France, actually, when I'd go over there, there's a lot of French music. So you try and integrate into the French culture and listen to a bit of French music, which is pretty cool as well. So bit of a mix.
Good. Awesome. And was that different, like playing obviously in Europe and like with that comparison with the NRL? What's some of the main differences?
Probably the defensive side of it. It is very similar. I'd say the wrestle's a lot cleaner here in the NRL.
Oh, okay.
So guys, there's full-time wrestling coaches here, so you definitely notice that. And maybe the decision-making for outside backs over there. The forwards, the game's just as tough, just as fast. Just a little attention to detail with decision-making was probably the main things that I noticed, which was different. But in saying that, sometimes I found it a lot tougher playing over there just because of how cold it was. And I think I remember my very first trial game in Hull. It was snowing in the warm up, so you're running out and it's snowing. You're like, oh, it's cold, but not too bad. I can kind of put up with it. Jeez. And so the snow's hitting your skin. You're like, oh man, wow, this is cool while you're warming up. And then so you go kick you go kick off, and it's getting colder and colder.
Yeah.
So half time comes and you're sitting in the sheds, and then you look at the guys who've been on the bench, because normally a trial game there's about 7-8 guys on the bench waiting to get on taken up, and they're just sitting there, just shaking like this. And I think it took me about 5 minutes of sitting there to feel the same. Jeez. And so at half time I had to go turn the hot water on to put my hands in it just to warm up before going out and playing again. And that was my very first game in the Super League, and I was just thinking, oh man, what have I done? But then, so you'd have those at the start of the year, which were really tough to play in. But then for the rest of the year, it was really enjoyable.
Yeah. Wow. And who are some of the most influential people in your life? How has that changed from starting your career in the NRL to now?
I think most influential people would be, initially it was my grandfather, but I say my grandma because as we look at guys, we're supposed to provide and protect our communities. And so I spent a lot of time with them. They were subsistence farmers. My mum worked in town, but I spent a lot of time with my grandparents because I hadn't started school yet, and they were my carers. And so I'd go to the garden with them. They'd plant bananas, yams, taros. Yeah. But a lot of images in my mind are just her carrying food on her head in the bilum.
In the bilum.
And, she'd be sick, tired, whatever. But, she'd go to garden work and to make sure she provided food for her family. So I'd say she was my number one. And then, my auntie who adopted me into the family, called my dear mum. So... she had a huge impact on my life, adopting me out of the family, getting me out of the village. I was getting a bit of trouble as well in the village and stuff like that, just a typical village life, getting into fights and, smoking cigarette butts off the ground, mutras, literally all your mates are, you know what I mean? Like they see a half.
Little butt.
You go and hide in the back and just, and so, that kind of, it's a lot of typical village kid stuff. Yeah. So, when they get in trouble, I empathize with them because it's so easy to get caught up in it. And so, she saved me from that type of environment, and it would have led to, I know for sure it would have led to drinking wine, smoking marijuana, all that. Young kids are getting into it. So she was really, I think she saved me from that scene. But then she taught me the importance of discipline, dishes, mowing the lawn, all the simple stuff that we do at home. So I was doing that from the age of 13, 14 up until I finished high school. And I think that those two people were very key in my life. And then, my wife now, Tanil, and she's probably the most inspirational one. Now she just does everything. She's organised. Whatever me and the boys need, she looks after and does it without any hesitation. So I think they're the three key figures throughout different parts of my life. Yeah. And so, but in terms of athletes and inspirational people, I've always just looked at different YouTube clips throughout high school, growing up, Michael Jordan's. A bit of Will Smith, he's had a lot of motivational things about work ethic and stuff like that. Yeah. So, I try and draw inspiration from a lot of different athletes and sporting icons, but essentially the real inspirations are those three women in my life.
And you touched a little bit on your kids and your family there. Your kids are still very young, but are any of them showing interest in following your sporting footsteps at the moment?
At this stage, no interest whatsoever. Okay. So I tried to get them both in rugby league this year, and Paxton was he was letting these kids just run past him while his teammates are scrambling, So I'm standing there on the sideline as a dad, standing on, mate, and you're trying to be a supportive dad. I'm trying to watch him without my rugby league lenses on. And I'm just sitting there, getting really, frustrated, tense. But trying to understand that, kids are all different. They're not going to be like you. And so I had to have a chat to him and just say, do you want to play or not? So I think he played like maybe 4 or 5 games. He'd have a go, but he's naturally soccer. He loves soccer.
Oh, yeah.
He's got soccer posters at home. He's got Ronaldo jerseys, Messi, all these different... but that's the group of friends that he has at school. And that's all they talk about. So maybe if they choose rugby league... I'll be there to support them. and hopefully they listen to a bit of advice. They honestly, if someone else tells them the same thing that I do, they'll listen to them.
Yeah.
And so, but the younger one, I think he wants to play soccer as well. So that's kind of the path that they're leaning towards at this stage. But, you know, they'll have their own choices when growing up, and I'll never push them into something they don't want to do.
Yeah.
But right now it is, you know, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, learn some martial arts, a bit of discipline and, you know, body awareness so that you can learn how to fall, which is, I think, is pretty important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what was your big I made it moment? So look, where did you really feel that you were at your level of accomplishment? If you do have a memory of that.
Yeah, not one moment in particular, but there was different stages of your career. My very first, like, my made it moment was when Coach John Cartwright approached me and said, "Would you like to play for the Titans one day?" This was I was 17 at the time at Mullumbimby, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to." You know, I didn't really say too much, but that was my response. And I remember during the next week or two, Tom Searle, one of the head of football departments, came down with a contract, and as I was signing, he said, "These are the things that you will get with being a academy player." And when I looked at it, I was like, "Oh man, that's pretty cool." You know, polo shirt, a couple of tickets to the Titans games at the Carrara, and some free boots. Wow. So when I saw that, I was like, "Man, I think I've made it." So that was the initial stage of, wow, free boots. Yeah. Wow, I don't have to buy them. And so, yeah, that was the first one. But I think Kumuls in Townsville against England.
Oh, yeah.
That was an emotional one. You know, just walking out, singing the national anthem, and then kick off. And then full time, you know, although we lost, it felt like we played well as a team.
Yeah.
And it's not until you kind of sit back in the dressing room and talk to the players, and you're kind of like, "Oh man, wow." And I don't know if it's a I made it moment, but it's kind of like, that was pretty cool, you know. Give me some more. That type of feeling, yeah. And so, you know, World Cup ended, and then NRL, you're kind of waiting. I didn't debut till round 13, my first game of NRL, and then you play the game, it's done, and then it's not really like you sit there and go, "I think I've made it." It's more like, you know, I'm craving some more. I can't wait to get back to training and play again next week. So, yeah, there's a couple of moments there where you kind of go, this is pretty cool. Oh. Yeah, but I think the boots, the free boots, that was probably the peak of all of it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, free boots.
Yeah, free boots, especially when you don't have to buy them, you know, because I think I used to work at Target Country Lismore.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I was getting paid, I don't know, $8-9 an hour. So you try and save your money for boots and cricket bats, especially. They were pretty expensive. I think like $200 for the good Grey Nichols bats. So I'd buy a lot of cricket gear. But my auntie, who was my mum at the time, she'd buy a lot of stuff for me, but I'd want to buy my own stuff as well.
Yeah.
So I used to buy boots. But then to have free boots handed to you because, you know, and plus the Gold Coast Titans logo on the polo, I used to wear that shirt everywhere. You know?
Wow. That's so good. And I mean, you touched on this before, the importance of discipline when trying to reach goals, but also staying fit, like at that level. Was that something you struggled with, or was that we just switched on and just got straight into it? And obviously maintaining that for years.
Yeah, I was never scared to train because, you know, I think I was about 14 when I used to come home from school. We lived next to a cricket field.
Yep.
And so I used to just go down the field and do laps on my own anyway, pass the footy, kick it around. But in terms of like a proper training, following a proper training regime, I was never afraid to just go in and have a crack. I was never the fittest in the team. I think most of my career I was, you know, for pre-season training, I was never really up there with the fittest. I was kind of more middle back. But when rugby league games came around, then my fitness was playing rugby league. It was whenever we did like kind of marathon style or long distance type of running, I just absolutely hated it because I just knew I'd be at the back. You know, for sprint training and stuff, you're kind of like, that's what you're built for. So I wouldn't say I was a natural. I did have to work hard at my fitness and strength. I had to put on a bit of size as well, which requires a bit of discipline because you can get bigger eating, you know, chips and, you know, all the bad food quickly, or you can get bigger put on the good weight with, good discipline and the right foods in your body. So that was a bit of a learning process for me to get that right. But in terms of training, I've always, trained more than what I needed to, because I just knew my natural abilities were nowhere near everyone else in my team or the guys who I was going to compete with. So I've always, if anything, trained more than what I was required to do.
Oh yeah. Stay on top.
Just to maintain my standards amongst other guys. NRL, it's a tough sport. So many talented guys, and plus they all work hard. So if you want to match that and you don't have much talent, you just have to keep working hard to stay with them. So that was, I kind of had to do that. And once it becomes normal, that's just what you do.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't say it was. I mean, it is hard. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of like any job. You turn up and you just give your best so you can feel good about it.
And during that time, was there any particular player or team that you liked versing? Looking back now, I
think Broncos was always good.
Yeah,
when I was at the Titans, because I just knew the crowd would be more fired up. Stadium would always be close to a sellout. Or the Warriors, actually. I think we'd get booed every time we ran out at home against the Warriors because big New Zealand population.
Yeah. Wow.
So they'd get a loud cheer at our home ground.
Gosh.
We'd run out second and we'd boo. And you're kind of thinking, wow, this is but I think it still happens now because Gold Coast is majority Kiwis living down there. So, but those two teams I really enjoy playing against in particular.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wow. And this was brought up before. Obviously, we had Trevor Exton on. What are your thoughts on the PNG team joining the NRL? And how do you think, I guess, other Kumul legends feel about this? If you have discussed with them about it? Yeah,
I think a lot of us, when we've spoken, we're like, oh man, we missed the boat on this one, eh? I wish we were a bit younger, why didn't they bring this in a while ago?
Gosh.
But, obviously we're excited.
Yeah.
It's going to be very positive for the community in Port Moresby and across the country as well. Young kids are going to look forward to that. When you dream of playing NRL and it's overseas, it feels like a distant dream. Yeah. But when you know it's at your doorstep, you're going to, I think you're going to work a lot harder for it to make it a reality. So that dream can be realized for a lot of kids back there. And even if they don't make it, they'll implement some good habits that are going to serve them long term. So I think it's going to have a really good impact in the country, not just on the field, but off the field as well.
Yes.
I think a lot of and so I'm all for it. I'm in full support. I've always have been. I think it's going to shine a light on a lot of the social issues that PNG goes through as a country. We're already seeing that now on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. People. I think I saw you guys. You said whatever the posts are about. I think I saw a couple of your clips. You were saying whatever the post is about NRL, PNG people will comment on it.
Oh yeah,
unrelated to what the post is.
Yeah.
So so it's
Even now, if you just go on the Broncos.
Yeah, it is. And I always noticed that and it's we've got some great passionate fans who love the game. Going to be some educating happening around,
of course.
And I don't know how you police that either, but as a country we need to be better with. Not just not social media comments, even though they have their positive and negative. I think it'll be more so around, the domestic violence issues. Just putting better school systems in place, fixing up the hospitals because people are going to be louder, and the NRL team is going to be held accountable to do things at a high standard.
Yeah,
and also it's going to shine a light on Port Moresby in particular. About the city getting its act together to make it cleaner and to make hopefully it helps the government to get their act together as well and to to serve the people better because this is an opportunity to do some good for the community, but I think it's also going to be holding us accountable as a country for a lot of the social issues that we don't address collectively to improve. So I think there's going to be some real positive changes with this team. Yeah,
100%.
Social media comments, I don't know if they'll ever be improved, but that's part of the fun, right? It's you just don't go too far with it.
Take it easy. And what would you say to people with strong opinions against seeing that PNG team happening? I know there's a bit of a big division, but hopefully we all come together and get that same. But what's your message?
I can understand that. People have been frustrated for many decades with the lack of resources in the hospitals. Schools are overpopulated. Teachers are struggling. There's 60, 80 kids in one classroom. Some of the schools, just really tough for the teachers. Nurses don't have much resources. There's a shortage of doctors. So a lot of stress in the health and education system. And so you can see why people are sitting there going, why is sport a priority when we've got all these issues over here that we need to address? And, I think there have been some studies come out of where sporting teams have been put into cities and the communities improved in terms of youth crime. A lot of young guys getting off the streets and doing something useful with their lives. So I think there's got to be some positives coming out of the sporting team integrated into the city. But, when people get frustrated, I completely understand. I'm not against what their opinion is. They're entitled to it, and they should be frustrated because, the country is it's in a really bad state at the moment in terms of, youth crime, health, education.
The looting. I know you put out a message.
Yeah, and so you can just see people are desperate. And that's why when people are desperate, they're going to do whatever they can to feed themselves and their families. So I think it's healthy to keep expressing your frustrations, but it's also I think you when you're going out and posting things on social media all the time, which is what people love to do, you have to just look at yourself and go, okay, well, what am I doing with my own house? Am I fixing up my yard? Is my house clean? Do I talk to my kids in a good manner? Do I attend their sporting activities, their schooling? Do I sit down and do their homework with them, or am I just expecting everyone else to? And that's apparent and that's very evident for a lot of people back home. There's a lot of people who haven't been through the education system. There's a lot of settlements around town as well, so it's really, really hard to fix the place up. But when we sit there and just complain about how PNG's gone bad, blaming the politicians, they need to be better. But you got to fix your own backyard first. My grandparents didn't earn a cent in their whole lives. They had kids that went to town, and life was still tough back then. They worked till they were in the coffin. So for a lot of people sitting around complaining, you got to get up and do some work. Pay your taxes, and then we can express our views. But it's a big topic. We can sit there for hours talking about all these different issues. But I honestly believe that there's going to be a lot of good come out of this PNG team being in the NRL.
Awesome. And lastly, what advice, I know you just sort of started to get into that, but what advice do you have for the younger generation of Papua New Guineans, but not so much just Papua New Guineans in general, living in Papua New Guinea, but also, abroad? There'll be people from elsewhere looking at this, but also people that follow your podcast as well, about what do you have to say for them with them trying to reach or achieve their hard goals? What's a bit of advice you can give it to them?
I think just we get a certain amount of hours in the day. Allocate some of that to feeding your mind some good stuff, whether it's reading books, talking to people who are positive. It's hard to stay away from negative people because they're all around us. We live in a community type of upbringing in PNG, so you're going to have negative people everywhere.
Yeah.
Especially in your house. And so, try and be a positive individual and educate yourself, feed your mind some of the good stuff. And, do the best that you can in whatever field that you're doing, whether it's school, sport, education in different areas like university or in the workplace. I think if you look at life over a long-term period, I think you'll be surprised at how far you can go, but rather than looking at trying to be the best in your field over the next 1 to 5 or even 10 years. I think if you try and look beyond that and implement some good habits today, tomorrow, like these little 1% improvements, whether it's reading, keeping your house tidy, giving the best that you can at work, good things are just going to naturally happen. I think opportunities will present themselves. So I think also, be kind to yourself and to everyone around you, because, man, I think sometimes we're a bit hard on ourselves when we don't achieve the highest level. We look at everyone else, especially with social media now. It looks like everyone else, everything's going really well for everyone else, and we're stuck down here. Yeah. But I think reality is we only put up most of the good stuff that's happening in our lives,
Sure.
We hardly talk about our struggles, but, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You can just, make your own garden and, water it, look after it well. And, the butterflies will come. The good things will come. So, that's my advice. Have big goals, especially young guys. We're a bit hard on ourselves as young guys. Yeah. You want to play for the Kumuls or, want to play NRL. We don't make it, and then we're, really hard on ourselves, and then, we don't finish our uni degrees. We don't finish school. We've got our whole life ahead of us. That's only a very small part of our life. If you focus on just improving yourself a little bit by little bit every single day, 15, 20 years from now, you look back and go, wow, I can't believe I'm the person I am today from, when I was 20. And so, I think that's probably my advice. Hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Thank you very much for coming on. We learned a lot from you today, and just thank you. Thanks for sharing this space with us and making time for this. And it's an honor, definitely an honor to have you here. And thank you again. Sorry,
thanks, Charles. Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Richard. Thanks,
coming,
Jack. You guys are doing a great job. I think this is only early days by the looks of it. I've seen a couple of your clips come up, and it's you guys are doing a really good job. So keep it up, and hopefully we'll have another chat sometime again in the future. And
definitely,
hopefully maybe when the team comes in, and we'll reflect on this clip and.
For sure.
But thanks, boys. Keep up the good job, and thanks for having me on.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
There you have it, guys. David Mead.